Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, February 1st, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a pleasant high of 70.5 degrees, with a low of 46.8 degrees, making it a comfortable winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine the lasting impact of a Trump administration policy that affected the collection of critical gender health statistics. We'll also explore California's groundbreaking campaign finance decision and what it means for political donations nationwide. Plus, we'll share the fascinating origin story of one of gaming's most popular life simulation franchises, which surprisingly began with a devastating house fire. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. We begin this morning with a significant development in federal policy that's affecting health information across government websites. Joining us to discuss this story is our political correspondent, Ethan Matthews. Ethan, what can you tell us about these sweeping changes?
According to reporting from the Associated Press, federal agencies across the country have been rapidly removing health data and website content following a directive from the Office of Personnel Management. This stems from a Trump executive order that required all federal agencies to eliminate what's being termed as gender ideology from their websites, contracts, and even email communications.
What specific changes are we seeing at major health organizations like the CDC?
The CDC has seen some of the most dramatic changes, Grace. As Scripps News reports, they've had to remove several critical health resources, including contraception guidance, HIV fact sheets, and information about transgender health issues. What's particularly concerning to health professionals is the removal of resources related to HIV testing and prevention strategies.
How are other federal departments adapting to this directive?
The State Department has made several significant changes. They've eliminated the X-gender option from passport applications and are now requiring all forms to use sex instead of gender. Staff members have also been instructed to remove gender-specific pronouns from their email signatures. The Bureau of Prisons has similarly relabeled their systems, changing inmate gender to inmate sex and removing transgender inmate statistics from their databases.
What's been the response from the medical community to these changes?
According to WRIC-ABC8 News, there's significant concern among healthcare professionals. The Infectious Diseases Society of America has been particularly vocal, criticizing the removal of HIV-related information. Medical experts are warning that removing these resources could create dangerous gaps in public health information, especially in efforts to combat the HIV epidemic.
And what about the military? How are they implementing these changes?
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered the military to stop recognizing gender identity altogether. This is part of the broader executive order that defines sex as exclusively male or female. When questioned about these website changes, President Trump indicated that these actions align with his campaign promises to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll continue to follow this developing story. For our second story this morning, we turn to a significant development in California politics. Joining us is our political correspondent, Chloe Martinez, with details about a recent decision that could reshape campaign financing in the state.
Chloe? Thanks, Grace. According to reporting from CalMatters yesterday, California's Fair Political Practices Commission, or FPPC, has just concluded a 2-year investigation into a nonprofit called Govern for California, also known as GFC. This investigation has essentially given the green light to a controversial fundraising strategy that could fundamentally change how political donations work in our state.
Can you explain what makes this strategy so significant?
Well, Grace, the FPPC's decision validates a structure where political committees can essentially multiply their influence. According to the investigation's findings, these committees can create unlimited numbers of affiliated groups, coordinate their fundraising efforts, and work together on candidate donations, all while technically staying within individual contribution limits.
What are those current contribution limits in California?
For the 2023-2024 period, individual donors are limited to $5,500 per election for state legislature and local offices. $9,100 for most statewide offices, and $36,400 for gubernatorial races. But what's interesting here, Grace, is that GFC, which is primarily backed by Bay Area venture capitalists and tech executives, found a way to work around these limits that the FPPC has now deemed legitimate.
How are critics responding to this decision?
According to Cal Matters, there's significant pushback. Former union leader Dave Lowe has criticized the investigation as superficial, suggesting it didn't thoroughly examine all available evidence. Campaign finance experts are particularly concerned that this ruling could inspire other donor networks to adopt similar strategies.
And what's the historical context here? How does this fit into California's campaign finance regulations?
This decision represents a notable shift in California's campaign finance landscape, which has been governed by the Political Reform Act since 1974. The investigation began following a 2022 Cal Matters report, and this ruling effectively changes how political donors can organize and maximize their influence in state politics.
Thank you for breaking this down for us, Chloe. We'll certainly be watching how this develops.
Thanks, Grace. And I should note that this reporting is based on coverage from Cal Matters and Ground News, with additional context from the Perplexity API.
Here are some other headlines. In a devastating clash in Pakistan's Balochistan province, 18 Pakistani soldiers and 12 separatist rebels were killed during intense fighting in the northwestern region. The conflict highlights ongoing tensions in Pakistan's largest and most resource-rich province, where separatist groups have long fought for greater autonomy. A U.S. watchdog agency has determined that the Taliban have no legal right to access nearly $4 billion in Afghan funds currently held in a Swiss-based account. The funds, originally part of Afghanistan's central bank assets, were frozen following the Taliban's return to power in 2021 and are intended to support the Afghan people, not the Taliban regime. Tragedy struck in Michigan as a 5-year-old boy lost his life in a hyperbaric chamber explosion at a medical facility. The incident has prompted investigations into safety protocols and equipment maintenance at the facility. In Philadelphia, a medical transport plane carrying a child patient crashed shortly after takeoff, resulting in multiple casualties and setting several homes ablaze. The Learjet 55, operated by Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, was carrying 6 people, including the young patient, her mother, and 4 crew members, all Mexican nationals. The crash ignited fires in at least 6 homes in a residential area. In Washington, D.C., recovery efforts continue following the tragic collision between an American Airlines regional jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River. The crash claimed 67 lives, including 64 passengers and crew on the commercial flight and 3 helicopter crew members. Investigators have recovered the helicopter's black box, while search teams work to recover victims from the river. Local schools are providing crisis counseling to affected students and families. We're turning now to a milestone in the gaming industry. One of the most influential video game franchises is marking a major anniversary this month. Here with more details is our technology correspondent, Ethan Parker.
Thanks, Grace. The Sims, the beloved life simulation game that revolutionized the gaming industry, is celebrating its 25th anniversary this month. According to NPR, since its launch in February 2000, the franchise has achieved remarkable success, with over 200 million copies sold and more than 500 million players worldwide.
Those are impressive numbers, Ethan. How did this unique concept come about?
Well, Grace, it's actually quite an interesting story. According to gaming industry sources, creator Will Wright found inspiration in an unexpected tragedy, the Oakland-Berkeley firestorm of 1991, where he lost his home. The experience of rebuilding his life from scratch led to what was initially conceived as an architectural design game called Home Tactics, before evolving into the Sims we know today.
I understand the game wasn't an immediate hit with executives?
That's right. Industry reports indicate there was significant skepticism about what they dismissed as a virtual dollhouse. But the game proved them wrong spectacularly. By March 2002, just 2 years after release, it had sold 6.3 million copies, becoming the best-selling PC game in history at that time.
And how is Electronic Arts celebrating this milestone?
According to EA's announcements, they've released a special 25th anniversary birthday bundle on various platforms, including Steam and the EA app. They're also hosting a 25-hour live stream and providing free updates for The Sims 4 and The Sims FreePlay. It's worth noting that in 2024 alone, players logged an impressive 1.2 billion hours in the latest version.
The game seems to have quite an intellectual foundation as well.
Indeed, Grace. Gaming industry archives show that the original 2000 game manual included an ambitious reading list featuring scholarly works on architecture and economics. The franchise has also been notably progressive, allowing relationships between Sims of any gender since its inception. And now, as of 2025, there's even a Sims movie in development.
Thank you for that report, Ethan. This has been Story 3 of 3 on this morning's news. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.